So I was in Charlotte for Kevin Durant's first game. We're going to be with MacMahon on Sunday. They play Friday night in Chicago, but Sunday is hopefully a big one. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. MacMahon, you've got a game tonight. The Mavericks are hosting the 76ers on the second night of a back-to-back for Philly. So we'll see how that goes. Mavericks, I would advise them to win that one as a side note. We'll talk about the Suns. Catching them on a back-to-back, and it's an early start too, right? 6:30 Central.
Yeah, Doc did not seem too thrilled with the scheduling, but neither here nor there.
All right, this one is pump. The pump is primed for the Mavericks to get a win here. So let's see what happens. But anyway, for the Suns, it was hard to make an honest evaluation of their actual strategy and play. We'll talk about it a little bit, but they were playing the Hornets. They were playing the Hornets without LaMelo Ball. The Hornets had won 5 in a row, and they did have some stretches in the game where they played interesting. Kelly Oubre was just firing up shots. At one point, I think he was 3 of 16. So that's the kind of team that they were playing, just to be honest. They got up 11-0. The Suns did, and they won by 13, or maybe they won by 14. So just keep that in mind. Okay, having said that, I have to tell you, as much as they try to not show their emotion, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are absolutely giddy about this partnership. And Booker was saying stuff like it was unreal, or I couldn't believe it was real watching him out there. And I can't believe how easy his shots come, as if he's never seen him shoot before. But like, that's the thing about Durant. His game is kind of timeless. I've covered his whole career. I've watched him in the finals with the Thunder. I've watched him in the finals in person, with the Warriors, with Team USA, with the Nets. I've interviewed him in all these situations and all these different uniforms and all these different places all over the country, all over the world. And it is the same game. Guess what? He came out and hit a bunch of silky smooth 18 to 20 footers. This is what he does. He went 10 of 15 shooting in the game. And he was like, about 4 shots I should have made. He said that. But Booker was like, he couldn't hide his smile after this game. He was effusive. Usually when you ask Devin questions, he will answer it in sort of the minimum number of words. He was like going on and on and on. And the smile on his face was just, he couldn't suppress it. And Durant even said that he was nervous, which we have to have Nick Friedel on to verify, from all the Warriors and Nets days. I don't remember Durant saying he was nervous too often. He admitted he was nervous. He was nervous because it's a big freaking deal. And they have some flaws on the team, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I talked to Steve Clifford, the Hornets coach, before the game. And one of the things that he said was, okay, look, they're in any game plan that you're going to put up against them, especially in a playoff series, you're obviously, the central part of your game plan is you're going to double Booker and you're going to double Durant. And so he didn't use these names specifically. I'm just extrapolating. So, if they were playing this as a playoff game, if Kevin Durant is on the same side of the court as Torrey Craig or the same side of the court as Josh Okogie, obviously if there's an action for Durant, you're double teaming Durant and you're saying pass the ball to Torrey Craig. But the thing that Clifford was saying is that in the end of games, be they regular season games or playoff games, it's very hard to handle both of them in a strategic situation like that. And so in this game, Durant played 27 minutes and scored 24 points or 23 points. Booker scored 37 and had 7 assists. It was a good game for Booker. He, is now totally off the minute restriction that he had for the hamstring and the groin injury. That 1-2 punch is going to carry them a real long way. The other thing I thought was interesting.
What a point. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are going to carry the Suns a long way. That's great. I'm glad we got there.
Of course.
Glad we got there.
He's warming up, Bontemps.
The other thing that was key, I think, Monty Williams right out of the gate had Durant with 4 bench players to start the second and the fourth quarters. He played 4 6-minute shifts, and they let him finish. And he played half of those minutes of those shifts with 4 bench players. And in both times, again, against the Hornets, but both times the lead expanded. I think in those 2 shifts, Durant was in the neighborhood of like plus 14 or plus 15. So they've got Paul and Booker on the bench, and they're extending the lead. Won't happen every night, but that's another thing. And that's what Booker said after the game. We're going to have either have me or Kevin on the court at all times, which is helpful in the regular season and also helpful in the playoffs when you're probably only going to be playing 7 guys, 7.5 players in games that really matter. So, Bontemps, I know you weren't able to watch the game because you were covering I didn't see the Cavs Celtics game, so I'm in the same boat when we talk about that. But they started Josh Okogie as the 5th starter. Monty refused to say who he was going to do it till literally they had announced the starting lineups. Okogie had averaged 19 points since the Durant trade when he moved into the starting lineup. He scored 4 last night, and 2 of them was on a garbage time free throws where they fouled to stop the clock. So a little bit worrisome there, but this is a multi-year effort for the Suns, and this was the first start. So, okay, I monologued enough, Bontemps. I don't know what you got to see, but
I mean, I watched parts of the game. I had it on while I was at Celtics Cavs. I saw the opening quarter when I saw the Charlotte Hornets look like a truly horrendous team, which they are, especially without LaMelo Ball. And the Suns went up 11-0 and looked like they were playing a varsity JV game. And, obviously cruise from there. I mean, ironically, because I was at the Celtics Cavs game, I think the Suns really are just a better version of the Cavs. They've got 4 players that I really like and can really count on. And then they've got 11 question marks, just like the Cavs. Now, obviously, their talent at the top end is obviously superior. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant might be the best 1-2 combo in the league. But, like you said, Josh Okogie is their 5th starter. That's not really going to be good enough, I don't think, when they're playing at the highest level. They don't have anybody to guard elite perimeter players. I think that's going to be a problem at the highest level. But Kevin Durant and Devin Booker could score 70, 80 points on anybody. DeAndre Ayton has continued to improve. We'll see what Chris Paul can give them. He has been up and down as this year has gone along, but you've got Kevin on the court. Hopefully these guys can stay healthy. And, it'll be very interesting to see what they look like when they start to play some real teams, because again, especially without LaMelo Ball, this Hornets team is just not real competition. So, let's see Sunday when they play Dallas. That I'll be very interested to see what that game looks like.
I'm not as worried about depth as everybody else. I mean, like you said, Wendy, they're playing 7, maybe 8 guys per game in the playoffs. KD, Booker, those guys, their minutes are going to be in the high 30s, if not into the 40s. To me, this is going to be about how good is Chris Paul, right? And we know he can run an offense. And with those 2 guys plus DeAndre Ayton, he's going like he had 11 assists last night. That's going to be on a regular basis. I don't know that they can make playoff runs if he's got a whole lot of 2.1 of 8 performances. I do think he's going to have more points than turnovers on a regular basis for the Suns to get through the Western Conference. And
well, let's see how he can hold up on defense too, right? Because I mean, he's going to be targeted by a lot of these teams with elite perimeter players. They're playing against Memphis, they're playing against Golden State. Let's see how he handles that.
I think he's going to be targeted at both ends. I wonder if they're going to, if he's continuing to shoot this poorly, I'm wondering if they're laying off Torrey Craig and Koji, and they're also laying off Chris Paul.
Yeah.
I'd certainly be making him shoot instead of, if I could prevent Kevin Durant and Devin Booker from shooting, I'd be happy to let anybody else shoot.
Yeah. And then, DeAndre Ayton's obviously going to be a huge wild card, and, his shots, it makes sense that his shots will go down, but they need him to be an efficient, and I'm not going to say a dominant interior presence, but at least a forceful interior presence. Last night, 16 and 16, you'll take that on a regular basis. I think it's fair to say kind of his intensity tends to ebb and flow. They're going to need the best version of DeAndre Ayton, which, look, I do think that he's been undervalued. We've talked about this before. I think he's been undervalued by the Suns. All the wrestling and posturing it took for him to to finally get that max deal, but he needs to earn that money now.
Yeah, he's the only other player that scored in double figures last night. So
that's going to be the case a lot, I think.
Yeah, so Terrence Ross was out with a toe injury. Look, in my view, depending on who their opponents are playing, maybe Jock Landale, who's their backup center, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. To me, Cameron Payne's role may ebb and flow a little bit, but to me, it's their starters. It's those four guys. Three possible Hall of Famers. I mean, Chris Paul and KD are in. Booker's got a good chance. Aiden, and then to me, it's Okogie, Torrey Craig, Terrence Ross. Can they get in a 7-game series? Can they get 1.5 of those guys to deliver defense, effective defense? And Craig and Okogie are defensive specialists. They're not going to be on the all defensive team, but they are defensive specialists. And Craig has good length. He's 2 or 3 inches taller than Okogie. Can they get from those three guys? Are they going to provide enough? That's going to be a big factor. And by the way, the answer might be no. I'm not arguing that they can. The answer might be no. But the difference here is a huge difference between the Suns situation and the Mavericks situation. The Mavericks, we all agree they don't have enough. But we don't know whether they're going to get to add before Kyrie walks. With the Suns, this is the beginning of a medium-term marriage. I did think it was interesting. I wrote this in my story that was on ESPN, that it was ironic that they were in Charlotte for this game where the Durant-Kyrie betrothal happened by their own admission during the 2019 All-Star weekend, where they were famously caught on that wall.
I walked by them while they were talking at the game. I was thinking about it last night. I was walking there going to the halls. I saw them talking. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Kevin and Kyrie are having this conversation over here in the corner. And
I will say this, like, by the way, I talked about Booker. Kevin was excited post-game too. He was, there was light in his eyes post-game. And, I was thinking to myself, going with Booker, I don't know if it'll work. It's a lot better bet than going with Kyrie because Booker is kind of the opposite of Kyrie.
You don't say.
Booker, the only thing he cares about is basketball. Like he sometimes his dating life makes it into the
and lowriders.
I don't even know how many of those cars he's got because I've seen him in photographs in a lot.
He's got some nice rides.
Yeah. But anyway, he's totally focused on the game. Total no nonsense. The opposite of kind of possible distractions that Kyrie has. He's younger, he's bigger, and he's, he doesn't have the pedigree that Kyrie has, but he's, just sort of getting into the prime of his career. And so I'm watching the beginning of the new marriage, so to speak, in the same building where the old one. And so it's going to be a multi-year thing. Now, whether Chris Paul's going to be in that for those years, that's very much open.
TBD, right? And same with DeAndre Ayton, despite the fact he's on a long-term deal. Like if they're looking to, alter the roster around their two superstars, then DeAndre Ayton very well could end up getting moved. But for right now, those are they've got a big two, and then I don't know what you want to call the other two.
Well, they got a big two, and then they've got pieces they can move around.
A 4-man core.
That's right.
Well,
but it's those two guys.
Before I forget, Wendy, I feel like you've been highly disrespectful of 44% 3-point shooter and NBA champion Damian Lee, especially after running into his father-in-law last night.
That was there.
Just saying, don't
Well,
count
look,
him
I mean,
out
he
as far
actually
as
hasn't been playing that much recently. But in an individual playoff game or two, he's a guy they can go to. I just don't know if you can count on him, but he's won them games this year.
Hey, he won them when I'm sitting there watching, and he hits a turnaround fadeaway for the game winner. Like people are asking, who's getting the last shot? Booker, KD? Well, I mean, come on, I've seen Damian Lee, the game winner, baby.
I'd rather have Damian Lee playing than Terrence Ross. I'll just say that right now. I don't think that's up.
I don't want to get into like a long long-winded discussion about the 7th or 8th man of the Suns. Let me just say that whenever I see coaches or media or people talk about, well, what about this 9-man rotation? Or, how is he going to cut the rotation to 10? It's like, that's the thing. Monty's playing like 11 or 12 guys right now. Pat Riley rings in my ears. When the bleep gets real, you play 8 and trust 7.
Yeah.
When it's 2-2 in game 5, when you're down 2-1 in game 4, you're playing 8 and trusting 7.
And
that requires you to have 7.
Yeah,
wow.
Mike D'Antoni math, and you go back to some of the Suns' glory days. It was play 7 and trust 6.
Oh my God!
7 seconds or less, and 7 players or less in the rotation.
To do that, you have to have 6 guys you trust, which the Suns. I go
back to the 2016 Warriors, 73 win team, greatest regular season of all time. By the end of that series, Kerr was playing 7 and trusting 4. Because Bogut got hurt, but he didn't. He had nowhere to play at the end of that thing. So like again, when it gets down to the end, like things get real tight. So Bontemps, your point is fine. I'm just saying it's not all in this year for the Suns. They still have time, and they got an owner who's going to pay the tax. So
I agree. I mean, it's a very significant point to point out that it's a massive difference between where the Mavs are, as one example, where Kyrie could easily leave in 3 months and they could be left holding the bag, or you've got Kevin Durant locked in for 4 years and you've got him and Devin Booker together. That's unquestionably true. The problem is all I hear every day is people asking, "Oh, are the Suns the favorite to win the title? Are the Suns the favorite to win the West? This is, they're the clear, obvious pick." I just flatly don't think that's the case because, again, you've got a bunch of guys with injury concerns. We'll see if they can all stay on the court. Knock on wood. I certainly hope they can. And when you, like you said, you need to have 7 guys you trust in the playoff series. They've got 2, probably 3 with DeAndre Ayton. I don't know how Chris Paul's going to be by then. We saw in the Dallas series, he was a shell of himself for a large portion of that series by the end of it. And then you've got, again, you're picking from a, roulette from a bunch of mediocre to bad wing options that you would feel better if they were your 9th or 10th guy and you maybe played one of them. Instead, they've got to play all of them. So, if you're going up against Golden State, you're going up against the Clippers, you're going up against Dallas, you're going up against Memphis or Denver, all these teams with big time offenses, maybe Phoenix will outscore them all, but that's typically not how things work in the playoffs. Also, there are a couple of teams in the league who would feel comfortable playing Booker and Durant one-on-one and living with it. And so
Clippers? Who?
Clippers?
There ain't many.
Boston.
Okay.
Milwaukee. Durant doesn't. Last night's a good example. I mean, obviously they're playing the Hornets, who stink, but they scored 105 points. They had 3 guys in double figures, right? Like, if you go into a playoff series and you're a high-level team, I think that's the blueprint to beat these guys. It's like, hey, let Devin and Kevin shoot, let them shoot a ton of times, let them score. We're not going to give up open threes to these other guys, right? We're just going to guard everybody straight up. And if those guys could score 100 points by themselves, maybe they'll win. But they're probably going to score 70. And in today's NBA, we probably could get to 115. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get to 115 regularly in the playoffs against real teams. So this is definitely going to be something we're watching. And then obviously Sunday, that'll be very interesting with Matt and I'll be there.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.